Hey everyone, and welcome to a very special episode number 9 of Really Bad Security, brought to you by the Really Bad Security crew. That's myself, Aaron, Anthony, and Lloyd, and we're super excited today to be talking about an area of security that honestly we've had a lot of discussions about, but we wanted to really bring this topic up and dive a little deeper, and that is about security education, the next generation of security professionals, and how to properly get them trained up to take all these jobs that are out there. I was just reading an article this morning, prepping for this episode, that said by 2025, there's going to be 3.5 million unfilled security jobs in this country. And so at a time where, people are looking for, better jobs with better salaries, with better insurance, all of those things, I feel like there is an obvious lack of training up of the next generation of people to take these jobs. So with us today, we have Dr. Herb Mattford. He's professor at Kennesau State University, and he's got another great title that I'll let him explain because I couldn't write it all down. And Tim Bradford from Witfoo, the security platform Witfoo. Charles Herring, he's done some other stuff for us before. And so we're going to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that they're doing to help assist with this. So Herb, if you want to get us started, maybe do a brief introduction of yourself and your university. And then let's talk a little bit about your thoughts on the current state of cybersecurity education and kind of where you're going and where we want to get to, and we will certainly interrupt you with questions along the way.
Sure, no problem. And Matt, I'm going to give you some grief. There's no F in my name, dude. It's Mattford.
Mattered. I'm sorry.
I have to point out, over half the people I meet that see it written down say Mattford. It's just one of those things. You just
because I pulled it
common. Yeah.
Right.
I asked a linguist about it once, and it apparently the Ford suffix is very common. So anyway, thanks for the chance to come and talk. I actually came out of industry a number of years ago. I was at the Georgia Pacific Corporation as my last corporate job. That was about 28 years worth of industry experience I wrapped up there. And my last job was manager of technical security in the IT function, working with the security team that was built into an IT unit, which is a really common way of doing things, it turns out. Since then, I came to the conclusion about then that I wasn't going to run the place, and much less there were some parts of my job I didn't like much. And so I decided to go with my second choice, which was to become an educator. Got a job at the university here in Kennesaw, where I had been teaching at night, a couple nights a week, just for fun. Transitioned it to be my day job, and now I've been here for over 20 years. That's crazy. So I came at this from the angle of trying to make security a critical component of a college education. I also want to get on record early as saying, and I'm an all of the above security training person. I think there's a place for people that come out of high school with an interest in cybersecurity and self-train and get a job doing that. I think there's a place for people who take the certificate route. They get the Security Plus after high school and turn that into a job and turn it into a career. I also think there's a place for higher education in this mix. And hence, that's why I'm at the university. Kennesau State's been teaching security in the classroom since about the year 2000. It predates me joining the faculty. And it's pretty funny, is one of the stories I frequently tell is I was at a faculty meeting in 2003, and we were doing a roundtable, and I was in the computer science and information systems department meeting. And when it came my turn to speak, I said, well, I'd like to investigate developing security curriculum towards having a degree in information security, which is what we called cybersecurity then. And actually, several of my colleagues laughed out loud, and they informed me in the authoritative way that computer science professors have that the security problem would soon be solved by the vendors of the world, IBM and Microsoft, and that if we were to invest in curriculum in cybersecurity, it would be an absolute waste of time. They don't give degrees in database. They don't give degrees in whatever the topic of the day is. Those problems that were unique to the earlier era are gone because the computer industry solved those problems. And the security problem was going to be solved any day now.
Did you record that?
I wish I had. I wish I had. Yeah.
Have you had some conversations with said peers?
No, they skulked away, and their department is undergoing continual sort of reinventing, because computer science is a real thing and it has a real mission, but it doesn't really seem to be heading in the direction that we are with cybersecurity programs around the country and around the world, where every university has one or is making one. That's the reality. Every cybersecurity program is either just recently founded or it's going to be developed in the near future. There's a few of us schools, Georgia Tech here in Georgia, there's Columbus State, a couple of others around that were in this back in the day. Since then, I think we've grown to like 14 or 15 Georgia universities are having cybersecurity programs. Almost every two-year program in the state has some cybersecurity program in place. So we're really starting to crank out some associate degrees in cybersecurity. And then, of course, you have the external programs, the continuing professional education. There's some high school programs that are doing some amazing things. We just met with the Cherokee County C3 program, which has an acronym, computing and security and something. And these students came to our campus to see what we had to offer. We're up to having 2 full-on cybersecurity degrees and a business degree in information security and assurance. So we have 3 degrees on our campus that are already designated as cybersecurity focused degrees: BS in cybersecurity, MS in cybersecurity, and a BBA in information security and assurance, which are targeted at business majors instead of computing focused people. We think it's got an opportunity to have an influence in our neighborhoods, our state, and our region, to have well-trained, competent, and qualified, college-educated cybersecurity professionals. But please don't get the idea that I think you have to have a degree in order to be an effective employee that makes a difference. That is, I think, misleading, because it takes a lot of different skill sets and a lot of different people with a lot of different kinds of preparation. So when you reminded me of this call, we booked this months ago, but you reminded me of it. I said, well, what can I say? And so the one message I really want to concentrate on getting out is that every single security program, whether it's in a high school, a 2-year program, a self-paced continuing professional educational program, a bachelor's degree or a master's degree, every single one has to serve the needs of its constituent group. And the constituent group is made up of the students that want to study it and the employers that want to hire from it. And everyone has a different mixture. Some people are producing secure coders to go into the software trades. Some are producing future compliance managers. Some are producing threat analysts for the government or other agencies or the military. Every single one of them has a unique mixture of focuses, because they're not just one thing. At KSU, we've identified probably 3 or 5 or 10 or 30 different groups that want to hire our students. But most of our hires are placed with either corporations that want a certain kind of governance, privacy, business mix, or middle and smaller size companies that want a very competent technical mix. You know, somebody that graduates knowing how to set up a secure Linux server to do web-based transactions. That's that kind of thing. So each program, every colleague I meet, they say, well, what should I do about this kind of lab? What should I do about this kind of course? It depends. It depends on what your students are looking for, and that's based on what your employers are looking for.
Before Anthony jumps in with some controversial stuff, I want to echo just one of the points you talked about you're talking about looking at the high school development. So the Career Center, I'm recently on the advisory board for one of our local career centers, and they're offering a 13th year program, which I think all career centers need to do. They're partnering with Mid-Michigan Community College and Fair State University to where these students are they're walking, right? They're still walking the stage their senior year and getting a fake diploma, but they're actually not completing their diploma yet. They come back for a 13th year. That 13th year is geared towards college type classes. Then they're able to graduate after that 13 year with the equivalent of an associate's degree. And these kids have the opportunity to hit the ground with no debt, with no, fiscal debt and high demand. So I would say absolutely start looking and partnering with local high schools and career centers. So I'll be quiet. Anthony, I know you had a couple.
No, real quick, I do think that, Herb, I agree with you because I don't, I have a business degree. I don't have a degree in security. I'm not sure if any of you guys, I don't think any of you guys do, right? So I definitely agree that there's lots of ways to get into this industry, but I think in an era where, I remember now, granted, it was quite a while ago, but when I graduated high school, it wasn't a given that you were going to go to college. I feel like we fast forward 30 years and now I feel like when kids are graduating high school, there is this like, you got to go to college, like everyone has to go to college type of thing. And so I think, seeing that there are programs that are security based gives all of those kids something to pick, right? And whereas maybe before, security, like for me, that it wasn't my first thing. I kind of went through a IT career and then into a security career. And I think some of others of us have gone that roundabout way as well. But this, I think having these solid community careers can help shorten that up, or maybe at least people see that coming out of high school, like, oh, here's another opportunity besides computer science or whatever, right?
The world's changed a lot in 30 years, right, Matt? When I was coming out of high school and when I was coming out of college, there was hardly an IT degree. We didn't even know we needed cybersecurity until about the mid 90s, right? And I agree, there is a lot of unneeded pressure on kids nowadays coming out of high school to get into college and get yourself into debt and all of that. But I don't think it's mandatory. And, candidly, as a guy that's staring down the barrel of college tuition right now, I'm not sure the cost of secondary education is worth it right now. So, we're trying to do our part to, enable those kids to come out with the skills they need to just enter the workforce, be qualified to get the job, and immediately start contributing.
So I'm glad that's the way this conversation has started. As somebody who has no higher education and is currently managing a security operations department, I can tell you it is possible, and something that we should continue to help the next generation achieve without necessarily any formal education. What I do want to question or bring to light is those higher education programs and how we're making sure that, or at least maybe this is a question for you, Herb. How do we make sure that what we're teaching is applicable, is fresh, and is what these students are going to need? As somebody who has interviewed interns and analysts who are coming in and can't even tell me what a subnet is, or what Active Directory even is, or how it works. Things where as an analyst you need to be able to understand, look at, and make quick decisions on. So I feel like there are some gaps in higher education in that. So I just want to get your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. And your criticism is not unfounded. Absolutely. Part of the problem lies, however, in the fact that applicants to jobs don't necessarily come from programs that line up with those jobs. So some of it is the students picking the wrong jobs to apply for that they haven't been prepared for. Some of it's structural. And to be frank, we spend a significant amount of time and effort in aligning our curriculum to what we think our employers want to hire 6 or 8 years from now. That's the target we're trying to hit, because it takes us 2 or 3 years to get the curriculum processed, organized, and approved. And then the students entering the program pick up that curriculum, and 4 or 5 or 6 years later, they graduate with it. So there's a long lead time. So that's part of the problem. Doesn't take away from the fact that there's probably malpractice in a lot of higher ed situations where faculty are disconnected from the industry they're serving, or disconnected from the students that they're trying to recruit. Those are all failures. They need to be laid at the feet of the people that caused them. But for those of us that are in higher ed that are pushing the boundaries in the right directions as we see them, and I'd like to think I'm one of those, right, is we have barriers we work against because of the nature of the environment. That's why I'm an all of the above person. My belief is that all of the above program types we've talked about have a place, every single one. But the reality is also that you can't graduate from high school, even with a 13th year program, get your Security Plus certificate, launch your career, and take it to its conclusion. You're going to need additional inputs to your career along the way. And that's where higher education can serve its true best purpose. The true best use of those resources is in people that are advancing careers, that are moving the chains down the field in a long period of time. So yeah, all of the above. I think there's a lot of abuse though, of let's get these students out of high school, put them in college, and then give them a program of study that serves them poorly. That's just wrong.
I mean, I don't know, that's incredibly refreshing to hear from somebody who's representing higher education. So I appreciate that.
Well, I'm an advocate for my students, right? Because that's who I serve first. Then I'm an advocate for the employers I engage with, because that's who I serve second. My administrators here are supposed to help me do that job and get out of my way. Sometimes I find they don't, but that's okay too. That they have their own commitments and obligations and mission to fulfill.
Well, Herb, are they understanding? I don't mean to interrupt, but
no, feel free.
A relevant thought on that. Are they understanding that they're going to become even more under pressure going forward for 2 reasons? One is the stuff that Anthony talks about, right? Is businesses are going to start getting fed up and pivot away. Now you have, especially in the last 2 years, the push from Google, Amazon, especially Google, right? Google is on a mission to do their own certification, everything else, and then completely say, you don't need college ever. So are some of these old guard really understanding that it's like not because of COVID, right? But we've seen enrollments go down and fluctuate. But we're talking about, we have, bazillion-dollar companies now that are going to directly compete with the traditional, colleges and universities. Do they understand, or do you think? I mean, you can answer off the record, right? I don't want you to get in trouble, but I mean, because I feel that some of them don't see this train that's coming for him.
You know what? Herb's got tenure. He can say whatever the hell he wants.
Oh, all right. Yes. Go for it. I like that Ferris professor that was going off on the students.
Aaron, I'm a tenured full professor. Right? There's a few things in the world, like being a ship's captain is important. Tenured full still has a very few little privileges. And one of those is I can say what I want as long as it's not malicious and it's not, right, actionable. I can say what I want. So in this case, yes, some people in academia get it. A few of us. Some don't have a clue, and they're riding it out until retirement, apparently or obviously. The reality is that some companies say a lot, but don't really understand the problem they're trying to solve. If you're a multi-zillion-dollar company like Google, you can do whatever the hell you want and get away with it, right? They're welcome to. But for everybody else, how you hire does a lot more to influence this problem than you think. If you only hire people with 3 years experience, you're going to have a problem finding people with 3 years experience that want to move, because companies that have intake programs for entry level that aggressively use internships to screen applicants on the job instead of in an interview, they don't have a problem, right?
Hey, that sounds familiar.
They set up internships, they bring in 10 students, 2 of which have the chops to succeed. So they've gotten rid of 8 unqualified people at low cost. The 2 that are left, they groom them, they treat them well, they give them a visible path to success, and they have them for life, or at least a big down payment on a career, to build. The problem is there's a lot of companies that don't want to invest like that. They want to hire 3 to 5 year employees with experience. They can't find them. So then they start interviewing everybody who walks into an application. So you put up an application, I want XYZ. You get 250 applications. 20 of them lied and filled out the form the wrong way to get into the interview. And then they fail in front of Anthony as incompetent or incapable. And they give a bad light on the programs they came from that didn't prepare them well, because that was never the program's intention, to prepare them well, right? You see what I'm saying is that those companies that engage in the process properly are going to have to reap the benefits. The companies that come late to the party that aren't Google or Amazon aren't going to be able to have their own certification programs and their own career tracks and have 6,000 employees in the system and have different levels of preparation and skill. Those are great. But, you know, Acme manufacturing products isn't going to be able to do that. They have to come to the marketplace to hire. What they need to learn to do is to come in and do this a little more aggressive process of interning or apprenticing, if they could get the fortitude to put in an apprenticeship program. Think what they could do with that, right? I would love for my graduates to do 2 years of college and then do an apprenticeship for a year and then finish their degree once they started on the job. How cool would that be?
Absolutely.
Yeah, nobody's willing to invest that kind of money in their workforce, unfortunately.
I have a stat for you, right? So this is good timing. I was recently talking with and Matt and Anthony know. So Chris Rides is a major cybersecurity recruiter. Got a good presence on LinkedIn. He was just talking about how he put a job description out and he put not entry level in the title. Okay, so let's noodle on that, right? So job description, job posting, not entry level. He, in the course of the conversation with me, he talks about it was very clear in the job description it was a role for an experienced security analyst, but unfortunately, entry level candidates. So backing up what you just said, just applied without taking the time to read the job description. He ended up with 77 applicants, of which 72 were entry level in just 90 minutes. So,
well, in their defense, I tell my students, we have a platform we use in conjunction with LinkedIn called Handshake. And so when an employer calls me up on, especially, I love these cold calls. An employer calls me up, somebody I've never met, never heard of, says, I've got a really great opportunity for one of your students to come work for me. I need somebody with 3 to 5 years experience in, AWS, with a good security background, able to write policy, able to implement governance programs, and I'm going to pay them $65,000 a year. Right? So what am I supposed to do with that? Because I've got companies lined up that will hire my students as interns at that rate. Right. They'll get to be juniors. They've got enough skills maybe to be a little bit useful every other day of the week. Okay. And so they'll go to work with company X that's doing it the right way. They'll get some hands-on experience. The company will get the chance to watch them as they work to see who's worth keeping. At the end of their internship, 80% of them, they show them the door and they go to the next internship. But 20% of them, they say, hey, come over here. We're going to put you on this part-time job, 20 hours a week, limited benefits at this rate. Now go finish your degree and then we'll move you to full-time when you're done. That's the right way, okay? The wrong way is to post an ad on LinkedIn and then bitch about your 72 that aren't qualified. Sorry, that's not the right way to do things.
Right, no, especially because we tell people, if you go to any job fair, right, or career advancement, seminar, or whatever, they tell you to apply for jobs that you might not be qualified for. Put yourself out there, they say, see what happens in the interview. So, and then, you have the hiring managers who are weeding through hundreds of applications, like, I don't know why this person even applied. All right, next. So like, you know, there's conflicting ideologies here.
Okay, I'd like to take this in a new direction. Can I? As an interviewee?
Yeah, here you go.
Okay, so Tim's here. Tim's been a big help to me. And I want to direct this over to skilling as opposed to education, because it's two different things. My job as an educator at the university level is to produce a graduate with the theoretical education to build a career on and have just enough skills to justify hiring them for a job. Okay, you see the dichotomy there?
That's
okay.
Beautiful, honestly.
Because
I never thought of it that way. Yeah.
They have to be skilled enough to be employable.
Right.
But if I short them on their theoretical preparation and their educational foundation, their career will sputter to a halt a year or two in. So we have to thread the balance. We have to get through the eye of the needle here. My graduates have to have enough theoretical, educational, pedagogical driven background to build their career on. And at the same time, they can't be useless when they walk out into the job site.
Yeah, it's book smarts versus street smarts, right? And
no, it's not versus. It's not. They're not. They can't both not be there. You can't be one. It can't be the other. It has to be both.
You have to understand the theoretics of not just information security, but information technology, right? Because an information technology baseline is absolutely critical and key to working in information security. If you don't know what you're looking at, you won't be able to secure it. So we have programs, we have, especially it's more so on the defensive and the blue team side, where we have programs teaching, security and protection, but not what they're actually protecting. Again, back to my what is a subnet? What does Active Directory do? You don't know, but you have a cybersecurity. You have a bachelor's in cybersecurity. How did you get to that?
Well, that I get asked this a lot. Why does KSU have a Bachelor of Science and a Bachelor of Business Administration in the same basic discipline? And the difference is the BBA students have spent 40 credit hours of their 120 in business classes. This is marketing, management, economics, everything you need, accounting, the whole enchilada. The cyber students, meanwhile, have taken all of that work that was in business for this other degree, and they come out of IT. So they've got networking, they've got operating systems, they've got a Linux course or 2 or 3, they've got coding skills, they've got scripting, they've got programming. What we have to do is add to that enough practical tool sets like what Tim's company is doing. And we have other companies we've worked with over the years along the way. We have a very strong relationship with a company called Clearwater Compliance, right? They're in healthcare. I don't know, Aaron, I don't know if you use Clearwater.
I know Clearwater.
Yeah, so they're big supporters of our program, and every single one of our graduates is able to use that tool in a fundamental risk management problem-solving way. Every one of our students is exposed to the Witfoo architectural environment and understands how that product plays in the SIM space, and also gets exposed to some of the other aspects of the tool in better use cases than just being a SIM. So the point is that my job is to produce a graduate that's got the right background in preparation and in theory of education, of the educational subject, but at the same time can go on an internship and hold down a job for 10, 12 weeks and leave with a favorable impression with that employer. Right? So that's my perspective on this. If we're not doing both, we're failing. And I'm not just saying for college programs, I'm saying if you're a high school program, if you don't have your mix balanced properly and you spend all your time on tools and nothing on theory, you're doing the same kind of disservice in a different direction.
Right. You need theory and practical. You need to know what you're doing, but you also need to know why that's the thing.
Now, the mixture we choose to dial in on in any given program is unique to that program. It depends on what level of student, what type of employer we're targeting, what kind of students come to our program, where do we draw from? So there's no answer, but there are answers that everybody gets to choose from when they're building and when they're continuously improving their programs. And Anthony, one of your earlier comments, if you're not continuously improving, you're just counting the days until your program fails.
So I got two parts on that one, and it'll tie into both your positions. So the one from Anthony's point of view is yes, there's enough certification out there. There's enough AWS and Microsoft and Google training to where I really think you can get, quality entry level candidates. Where I think there's going to be important value in still having, the university level stuff is preparing leaders, right? Like you and I are not as much the norm as you think, Anthony. Like I went to CC, I graduated, I have a certificate. I didn't do associate because I started, that was my second career. But one of the things that I'm seeing with leadership, the younger leadership that's coming in is the business acumen, right? And that's where I really think universities can come into play, is because in a perfect world, if I was designing Herb's curriculum, I would literally have, a 2 to 4 year program, and there's a segment on business, learning business stuff,
Talk
and all
about that
those
all the
parts,
time.
right? Like business continuity plans, disaster recovery, business relationship. Like you could literally have a whole semester based on that. Then you can tie it into, the next step is security stuff and visibility, and then have, your second year students are, problem solving and understanding cloud security technology. Like there's value. I think in the future, I think that's where the power of a university could come in, is teaching.
Aaron, you've been looking at our catalog apparently.
No, well, I these are all challenges for me being a new advisory board member, because I'm struggling with the career center. Is security is so huge that how do you try and expose students, first year, juniors and seniors, to something that is so massive?
Aaron, we've been doing it since about 2000. And we're actually, with the feedback we get from a lot of our partners, we're getting better at it. So my point is that, yes, if you take a BS in cybersecurity at Kennesau State, you're going to get risk management. You're going to get forensics. You're going to get network security. That's after you've done your foundational work in networks, operating systems, scripting, and programming in procedural languages. And then you move into things like database architecture. Then you move into the security topics around securing those underlying technologies. Then you get into policy writing and compliance and privacy. That's what a university degree gives you differently than a set of structured training programs at Google, right? Because Google is going to be focused on delivering capabilities in targeted areas at the lowest cost, the lowest lapse time to deliver value. And that's perfect for Google. If you want to build a career and be the CISO of a major corporation, you have to prepare yourself differently from the beginning than someone who wants to be an AWS expert in securing containers at a mid-sized company. That's a different preparation. Many students don't understand that and get it wrong and get on trails that take them all over the place. But that's good too, because then they learn things they would never otherwise have learned. I probably spend 3 or 4 visits a week with students that are in high school that want to talk about careers in cyber. And that's my speech I give them. The dirty little secret is you don't need a degree. But if you want to go someplace specific, let's talk about the best way to get there in the least time with the fewest wrong turns.
Yeah.
That's where the value lies.
I think, go ahead, Matt.
Well, I was just going to say, I think that goes hand in hand with a lot of what we've been talking about, right? And that is, security has undergone a change over the last, 20 years of, we used to just stop everything, right? I mean, we were just no, to where now, like, if you don't understand the company that you're working for and the business that they're doing, and you're not helping enable them do business, better, faster, smarter, more, then you're actually not doing security in 2022, because we're now business enablers as much as we are anything else. So I think having that aspect of the education is critical to build.
How do you know what to protect if you don't know what your business does?
Yeah, and that
mic drop.
It's attached.
But if you change and go to another company in another industry, that those things might change ever so slightly, right? I mean, some security is security, but individual industry.
But basic, to your point, basic business principles
basic business
carry through, whether you're in healthcare, automotive, or the crazy world that is insurance. And I know insurance personally, and it's a crazy world.
So to that point, I think one of the things we've talked about, like getting a real world component to the education. And I know a lot of businesses with healthy bottom lines struggle with procuring security, modern security tools. So I am guessing, and Herb, I'll ask you, I guess, from that perspective, how much of a challenge is it to, have like modern security tools that you're teaching people? And then, and you mentioned a little bit earlier, but then we certainly, can have Tim jump in. Like, let's talk a little bit about what Witfoo is doing and why that's been a game changer for you guys at Kennesau State.
Okay, well, I'll take a stab at it. And that is, I don't pretend to be up to date on all the tools out there. I can't. I'm not a practitioner anymore. Yep. I have a pretty full portfolio. It keeps me busy. What I try to do is stay engaged enough to know what are the trends in software solutions that are out there, and then try to have a representative sample of techniques that use tools to have a practical aspect of what a student experiences. It's not, one point I remember we had a company call us up and say they want to hire 15 students that know X tool, whatever it was. I don't want to endorse it or not. And I said, well, that's impossible because we don't have that tool. And if you wanted to hire them in the next 4 years, we would have had to have it 4 years ago. And by the way, it was a tool we had tried to use in the classroom, and we couldn't get a license that we could afford to use. And they weren't interested in giving it away because I couldn't reach someone in the organization that cared about that particular way of marketing. As opposed to Tim and his team, who came to me and said, hey, we think we have a tool you guys might have some fun using. Your students would benefit from being exposed to it. And by the way, we'll set it up so that you have access to use it at a cost you can afford, which is zero, because I don't have a budget for software. And then what's even better is they put their money where their mouth was and gave us an actual contract that says they can't change their mind in the near term. Because I've been burned on that particular cross a few times, where I will make a deal with a company X and they will give us a suite of things to use, and we're running, it's great. 18 months later, we come up for renewal on our license, and everybody I had talked to has left the company. Nobody that remains at the company is interested in this particular angle of market attack. And so I'm left with having to change all my curriculum to something else. So we went through a very dry spell of open source everything.
Yeah.
Right. And then even that changed when companies like Nessus dropped their tool set, became a different company, Tenable, and then the next thing you know, it's a fee to use it. Right.
So I guess that's probably one of the advantages that being a smaller, like a career center and stuff like that, or a mid-Michigan or community college. How do you get that to your board also, right? Is because you got to be able to pivot more. What's so funny is before this recording, I have Anthony and Matt CC'd on an email where I'm actually trying to procure, albeit a little bit older equipment for the students, because to me, that's a marketing tool, right? Like that's a selling point that some of these vendors need to understand. We're going to have kids that are familiar with 40-net firewalls or Palo Alto firewalls. Like, so you killing two birds with one stone. They're learning how, firewall fundamentals, but they're having a marketable thing that Anthony's going to go, well, at least I think on a good day, Anthony's going to look at two applicants, right? And they have everything equal, but one of these students has like live experience on one of the tools that he's using. I think even on Anthony's dumbest day is going to know to pick that student, right?
Right. Because all firewalls are not the same, right? Just because you know one doesn't mean you know the others. And
some companies get this. I mean, Palo Alto is a good example. Our university happens to use it as its administrative platform of choice, but we also have a membership in the academic alliance that they have there, Palo Alto Academy. And so any one of our students that wants to can come out of their degree program with a PA certificate in hand. It's all done.
Which is a marketing tool for those students' careers.
I've been telling every vendor I talk to lately that this is something that they should be doing. So
point them to this video, point them to me and Anthony. We'll chew their asses.
And that's one thing we haven't really discussed, Herb, and you might want to talk to it. But in addition to all the no-cost software licensing, we also offer all of our training curriculum for free for the students there. And they have unfettered access to it. They can complete it at their own pace and when their schedules allow. But it serves us really well too, because we get feedback on our curriculum. Are the kids all failing the quizzes? And it's so funny with students. We always know when the end of the semester is coming close, because 30, 40, 50 students start registering for the community to take all the quizzes. We see their scores. Sometimes they're not so great, but anything, in addition to enabling the next generation, right? We like to think of cybersecurity as more of a public safety issue than just to protect the individual organization. So we learn a little bit more from everybody that comes through the curriculum, and that's how we evolve the coursework that we put together. And again, the outcome we're looking for, to your point, Aaron, is just to have these kids armed with the skills necessary to get their first job out of school, and hopefully have a good experience using our platform. So if they go into an organization that doesn't have Witfoo, they can recommend it.
Yeah. Or it's extra important to me, because we were talking about, Herb and I were talking about retirement. I'm less than 10 years out. Like, I got to get this younger generation rolling, because I really don't want to have to continue working, not because I need the money, but because if I don't work, the world's falling apart, right?
You retire ever.
Yeah. I'd like to reinforce one thing you said, Aaron, about the importance of being somewhat versed in the business as a cybersecurity professional. And Anthony, to your point, and the depth and breadth of skill you have to be successful in cybersecurity is immense, right? Hundreds of different tools, hundreds of different alarm types, there's so many different domains: network domain, data domain, user domain, no relationships between any of them. And then ultimately you have to understand, what the potential impact is on your business, your specific business, and be able to communicate with the business in terms that they understand. And it's really one of the primary reasons we founded this company, is that, security teams have largely just been looked at as a cost center, right? The board of directors is not going to get their CISSPs, right? They're never going to learn cybersecurity. So you have to speak with them in terms that they understand, using, kind of gap accounting metrics as to, okay, well, here's our risks, where we can do one of three things. We can either buy more tools, we can hire more people, or we can change our policies, right? And, if you can spell it out to them in simple terms, it really helps. But, another point on that, and Herb touched on it as well, oftentimes the only way to get that experience is, to give someone with less experience an opportunity to take the job and get that hands-on experience. And that's why, we offer internships as part of this education initiative. They're unpaid currently, but we offer them. And Georgia Tech has a good program here where pretty much all of their students do a one-year co-op program. So they take a full credit load, and then they take a lesser credit load, and they go into the workspace and, somewhere where their degree is, and get a year's worth of real world experience, so they can take that into their first job coming out of college. And I think that's hugely valuable. But it's not easy, right? Cyber has become, so crucial.
Yeah, and let me go back to the earlier point you made about having, such the swath of information you need to know. And I have people give me dirty looks all the time for saying this, but I'm going to continue to say it. Cybersecurity is not an entry-level position. We may have entry-level positions in cybersecurity, but it in no way is entry-level. And so when we look at the massive cybersecurity skills shortage, we're not looking at an untapped pool of individuals, and that's people already working in IT. Because I can take somebody who's a systems or network administrator, with 6 months of specific cybersecurity related training or even just work, and turn them into a cybersecurity expert pretty quickly. Somebody who doesn't have that foundation is going to be way harder to train and less likely to succeed.
Yeah.
And I won't argue with you there either. That's how I got into it, right? I was a database guy.
Me too.
Yeah.
So,
I was a systems administrator for almost 8 years before I switched to cyber.
I agree with you, but that pathway is no longer satisfying the demand. And that's why we're exploring other pathways. And you're right. Traditionally, cybersecurity was not an entry-level hire, but it's going to have to be creatively engineered by companies that want to tap this stream of potential hires and to set up internships and internal acclimatization and training programs for these BS cybersecurity graduates to be brought into the stream of cybersecurity professionals. So it's another pathway. I agree with you. It's not going to be plug and play like taking a 5-year system administrator and making a security professional out of. But it is possible, and I think some companies are willing to pay that price.
Sure.
Well, I got to drop, gentlemen.
Yeah, and with that,
day job calls, and
yeah, they say all good.
I don't
things
have enough
must come
money
to
to
an
saved
end.
up to be like Tim and start my own company. Tempting.
Careful
but-
what you wish for, Aaron. Careful what you wish for.
So
Hey,
yeah,
guys.
well, with that, exactly. This conversation could go on forever because it's exactly what we were hoping for. Outside of me mangling your name, Herb, at first, this was a perfect episode. If anyone is ever going to make a mistake in one of these, it's always me. So we'll just take it with that. But
Any listeners, feel free to track me down. I'm in LinkedIn. I'm happy to talk about anything, anytime with anyone. So feel free.
I'll second that, Matt. Anyone that wants to know more about the Witfoo Education Initiative, we're happy to socialize it anywhere where it can be beneficial.
there may be someone on that board in this, so they can reach out to me as well.
Okay.
Anyways, everyone that's watching, thanks for listening. Like, subscribe, do all of that great stuff, and we will see you again real soon. Thanks, everyone.